Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So earlier this year, back in January, Republicans and Democrats came together to pass the Social Security Fairness Act that increased benefits by right around $300 to $700 per month on average for right around 3 million Social Security recipients. And then this past week, back on July 4th, Trump signed his reconciliation bill, his one big beautiful bill, into law that actually increased the standard deduction for single filers age 65 or older. Otherwise, most Social Security recipients are going to benefit from this by $6,000 per year. That's going to eliminate taxes at the federal level for most Social Security beneficiaries. But later on this year, could we actually have the biggest change yet? In today's video, we are going to be breaking down everything that you need to know. But before we go ahead and dive into for today, if you would like to explore potential huge savings on your Medicare plan, then you might want to consider giving Chapter a call today. With that number up there on the screen, you see historically, on average, the people that Chapter work with save right around $1,100. So go ahead and give Chapter a call today with that number up there on the screen. That is 612-895-2101. That is 612-895-2101. And again, the average person who works with Chapter saves right around $1,100. So what do you have to lose? Give Chapter a call today with that number on the screen. And thank you once again to Chapter for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so diving right into it for today. So earlier this year, back in January, Republicans and Democrats came together to pass the Social Security Fairness Act. Biden signed into law that increased benefits by right around $300 to $700 per month on average for right around 3 million recipients. And also, back on July 4th, Trump signed his reconciliation bill, that big, beautiful bill, into law that increased the standard deduction up to $6,000 to $12,000 for those age 65 and older. That's going to eliminate taxation at the federal level for most Social Security recipients. So at this point, right around 9 out of 10 Social Security beneficiaries do not pay any taxes at the federal level. But later on this year, could we actually see the biggest change yet? That is because last year, Bill Cassidy formed a group together, Republicans and Democrats. We had 7 Republicans, we had 7 Democrats, and they formed a big idea for Social Security reform. They actually called it the big idea. We actually have Democrats exploring options for reform for Social Security, and we have Republicans forming reform ideas for Social Security. But in this one, we actually have Republicans pitching their ideas, Democrats pitching their ideas, and they're coming together to form this big idea. That is because, according to a recent report that we had from the Social Security trustees, they won't be able to pay full benefits in 2034 if Congress does not act. That is because the trust fund is going to be going insolvent. At that point, they are going to have a cut of 20% in benefits. That is going to be absolutely devastating. And again, this was actually a group that formed last year in 2024. They went to the White House 4 separate times, but according to Bill Cassidy, the president at the time, and Joe Biden, just was not interested in Social Security reform. And he said because of that, they weren't able to get anything done. But he said in the next Congress, this year in 2025, they hope to have this idea pitched to Trump and have it across the finish line. We're going to go ahead and show this video of Bill Cassidy explaining his big idea and what you can expect. Watch.
I'm pleased to say, though, that we have an idea. We call it our big idea. That at the mid part of last Congress, we had 7 Democratic senators, we had 7 Republican senators who were willing to go out on the podium and say, we endorse this idea. We briefed the White House 4 separate occasions. That was the good news. The bad news is that Biden wasn't interested. But nonetheless, we're setting it back up so that next Congress, we hope we can achieve it. So let me kind of quickly go over it, and then I'll take whatever questions you have. First, again, to repeat, Social Security is going insolvent, 7 or 8 years. At that point, according to law, the amount of money going out has to decrease to the amount of going in. Now, people may be confused. Wait a second, if it's going insolvent, why would you have to decrease? Well, for just a quick primer, in those years in which we paid extra, we as a society, it went into a trust fund. And that trust fund supplements the amount of revenue coming from our payroll taxes so that if the amount coming from payroll taxes is not sufficient to pay that promise to beneficiaries, the trust fund fills in the gap. The problem, in 7 or 8 years, that trust fund is kaput. When that happens, the amount that we're paying is less than the amount going out, and by law, it has to decrease here. The amount going out has to decrease. Now, no one thinks Congress is going to do that. Everyone thinks that Congress is going to step up and borrow the money and pay it. If we do that and include borrowing cost, our 75-year obligation to address that in nominal dollars is $615 trillion. $615 trillion. That's real money. $615 trillion. 20% of our nation's indebtedness over the next 75 years will be related to that. So, yes, it might be naive to take it on, but why in the heck are we otherwise here? But we have to think creatively. Americans, I mean, there's always a solution. Everybody says Social Security is easy to fix. You just eat your spinach. Well, you know, when I look around the United States, I don't see a whole lot of appetite for spinach. I just don't. People want something different. So we've tried to come up with a different idea, and we call it our big idea. And what we would do is set up an investment fund, separate from Social Security. Here's Social Security. We set up an investment fund. We put $1.5 trillion in it over 5 years, and it is invested in our nation's economy, just like the Canadians do. The Canadians have 10 separate funds in each province, and a teacher's fund, and this fund, and this fund. They put them in 20 years ago, something like that. And they've done fantastic. And they've taken pension funds that were in the red, and now they're firmly in the black. It's what the Norwegians do. It's what the Japanese do. It's what the Saudis do. It's what everybody does. You know, the birds do it, the bees do it, let's fall in love. It's what everyone does except for Social Security. So we would set up an investment fund, put $1.5 trillion. Any proceeds over the next 60 to 75 years would flow back into it. It would be held in escrow. We would repeal the law saying that you must cut benefits, but we would use this escrow to offset the borrowing required to pay those promised benefits. If you do this, that takes care of, using conservative estimates, that takes care of at least 70% of the long-term unfunded accrued liability. Along the way, we can actually increase benefits. Now, by the way, the reason we had 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats is that we figured out something that both Democrats would really like and Republicans liked too, and things that Republicans really liked and Democrats liked too, and we addressed those issues at the same time. For example, if you talk to someone who's 65 years old, retires, goes back to work, they're pulling their social, they go back to work as a nurse, they'll tell you, oh, I got a $1,000 cut in my Social Security payment. Now that's called the retirement earnings test. Now theoretically, that person gets the money back when they re-retire, and they'll get the money back. That is perceived as a tax, and someone will say, well, why do I go back to work? I'm going to lose $1,000 on my social. I'd rather just go fishing with my kids. We repeal that. It is a work incentive. Republicans love it. Democrats like it too. Republicans love it. We put in there a proposal, and everybody's going to know the person I'm describing. But it's basically a basic minimum benefit. And in this, my mother, we had a maid when I was growing up, and she would work 4 hours in the morning at one home, 4 hours down the street at the next home, and she would do that 5 days a week. And of the 10 people that employed her, my mother was the only one that paid Social Security on her. Now she wanted to be paid in cash, but my mother said, no, we're going to do it. But she was the only one. Now she qualified for Social Security. She paid her quarters, but it looks like she earned minimum wage 4 hours a week for 20 years, maybe 40 years. Her Social Security benefit will reflect that. We put in there a basic minimum benefit to elevate her, or him, to a level where she would have more money to live upon, even though she is seen by Social Security as a long-term low-wage worker. Democrats love that. Republicans like it too. Democrats really love it. And we have things on both sides that would get 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats willing to go public. Now, we've still got to fill in the gap, but there's dials we can turn, and believe me, Alex is here, and Joe's here, and my staff is young people are continuing to work upon this, to give an array of options to whoever the next president is, so that he or she could say, oh, I like this dial and I don't like that dial. Along the way, if we do this, we do address 20% of our nation's future indebtedness. This one program addresses that. We improve benefits. There's no spinach here. This is not quite dessert, but it's certainly as close to a free lunch as you can possibly get in public policy.
So once again, that is Bill Cassidy's big idea. Leave your thoughts and comments below. What do you think about it? Do you like it? Would you like to learn more? Leave your thoughts and comments below. But that's all we have for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.